Welcome to the Christian Dad Podcast, your place for encouragement and practical tips on how to be a great dad. I'm super happy to have my wife, Arlene Pellegrin, join us today.
You wanted to say Arlene Jellybean, didn't you? Almost.
I did.
Which is okay. It's okay.
She felt it. She totally felt it.
Which is totally fine. You can call me that.
Yes, she is
Lovely
my
to be on the Christian Dad Podcast with you. We're going to talk about parenting.
Yes.
And our kids are big now. We've got a college graduate, a college senior, and a high school senior. So we're going to talk about the stages of parenting so that if you've got kids, toddlers or elementary school or teenagers, you're going to get something from this. But we're going to start with Focus on the Family, talked about that there are 4 stages of parenting. And we're pretty much kind of at the last stage here. What are those 4 stages?
Yeah, the 4 stages are commander. That's kind of easy. Coach, counselor, and consultant. So commander, coach, counselor, and consultant.
So you were a good commander. When our kids were really, really little, it's like, let's do what daddy said. Yes, sir. Let's go.
Yeah, let's do this thing.
Let's do this thing.
Yes.
Let's see. Do you want to talk about each stage a little bit more?
I really don't.
Okay.
I really don't. It's kind of clear as we get into it. Yeah. We'll talk a little bit about it.
Okay.
But yeah, these are the 4. The thing that I would want to kind of emphasize today is how dynamic this thing called parenting is. Mm-hmm. And even within those stages, it's incredibly dynamic and fluid.
Yeah.
It's stunning. And when we don't make it dynamic and fluid, we create dysfunctionalities in our kids, both emotionally and physically. And my experience is emotional baggage.
Mm-hmm. It's like in one way, if we finally feel like, oh, I've got the rhythm, but then the rhythm changes and then you have to keep changing to the next thing. Why is it so important for parents then to be able to shift when one stage with their child developmentally is closing and you're entering this new stage? Like you've got them, they're going from preschoolers to now they're in elementary school or elementary. Now they're becoming teenagers. Why is it important that you shift as your child grows?
Yeah. Because the needs are changing. So Paul said it like this: when I was a child, I behaved like a child. I walked like a child. But now that I become a man, I put away childish ways. Mm-hmm. Now, hopefully that's the situation for all of our kids. But their needs change, and we need to recognize the fact that their needs are changing. For example, I had this conversation with every single one of my kids. Do not confuse your desire for independence with disrespect. So I saw that they wanted to be themselves and their needs were changing. It also communicated to me that I needed to back away from the commander. So commander is easy. The first early years, like the terrible 2s, that's easy street. I'm serious. Those are the fun years because the kids want to be with you. They want to be like you. What is that song from Disney? I want to be like you.
Yeah.
It's true. They really do. They want to emulate everything that you do. They want to be who you are. They love you. They want to hang out with you. Not so much when they're in their teens and they're approaching their 20s, right?
Yeah. So if a parent is staying in commander mode too long, what happens?
Yes. A couple of things happen. On an emotional level, you build up resentment. This comes into play where it says, and you fathers, I don't know why it picks on the fathers and not on the mothers, but it says, do not provoke your children to wrath, but bring them up in the training and admiration of the Lord. So it produces angst, it produces bitterness, it produces unforgiveness. We're not trusting them as they want to develop and be that independent person because we're not raising children, we're raising adults, right?
What would it look like if you are being a commander and you're not really even realizing it?
Yeah, part for me would be the tone. The tone needs to shift. And then in addition to that, the behaviors that we did, we can illustrate this. Like when Ethan was 2, he couldn't walk across the street without me holding these 2 fingers, right?
Yeah.
But if he's 18 and he still needs to hold these 2 fingers while he crosses the street, that's dysfunctional. Mm-hmm. So 2 things are going on there. Number 1, he's not developing the skills. And number 2, he's not developing the emotion. There's something going on emotionally inside of him. So to answer your question, what does it look like? It's hard to say, but I know when I see it or I know when I feel it. Mm-hmm. It just needs to be the parent. This is the purpose of this podcast, is to put an awareness out there for all the dads and moms that your parenting styles need to shift and needs to be very dynamic. It really does. Because if you're stuck in commander mode, that's going to produce those functionalities. If you're stuck in, on the other side of that is if you're a counselor, this is also really interesting to me. And maybe I'm jumping ahead here, is that all of us have a bent. Some of us love to be the commander. Some of us love to be the coach. You can do it, the cheerleader, right? And just a coach isn't a very good listener, right? A coach like barks out some orders.
Telling you what to do.
Right? A coach like, yeah, and knows they want to see their kids win. Absolutely. And then there's a counselor and the consultant. One of the things that I've seen, and so have you, we all seen it, is the parent who comes along their side, their child, as a counselor / consultant too early.
Mm-hmm.
And they stay in that mode. And what we see happen is the child develops, we see a lack of skills. And the lack of skills produce insecurities, right? And from there, it also produces, every single time without exception, I've seen it always produces anger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when they're in elementary school, that is not the time to come alongside as the counselor. Like, what do you think about that? What would you like to do? Like, that's not the right time to do it. So Sometimes you can overstay the stage, or you can be in a stage ahead of you that your kid's not ready for that.
Yeah. And you could, just along those lines, you can flirt with it to see what works, but just keep in mind that you need to jump back into that commander / coach, because they don't even know what's on the menu. They don't know their options.
Yeah.
And to pretend that they do is pretty naive.
Yeah. Do you want to say anything more about okay, if you are staying in coach mode when you should be moving to the other?
Along those lines, I think you should talk to your spouse and maybe even your kids. Like, I had to talk to my spouse. She helps me.
That's me. Who is this person?
Who is this person? Get out of the commander / coach mode and help me become more of a counselor. Maybe one of the things that we did really, really, really well, especially when the kids were young, is we tried to read books to always stay ahead of their development.
Yeah. Because we didn't know. It's like, we've never done this before. We better learn about this.
And there are tons of great resources. We're big fans of the ESOs. There are tons of really great resources out there. And also you can pick your brains of the parents who are in those resources as well. Because hopefully they've done their homework. And if they have good kids, then most likely they have. So if they don't talk to them.
Yeah.
Right? Just don't even bother. Don't bother. But I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, no, for sure. And then how about the counselor mode? If you're stuck in that, when you should be letting it go a little bit more, and they're older now, so now you're more of a consultant. That's kind of the stage we're in. Yeah.
Again, we're not trying to raise a child. We're trying to raise an adult. And when we're stuck in these modes, we have to realize it cripples it handicaps our kids. They have two choices. They can either comply, right? Which wouldn't be necessarily good for their own development, or they can rebel, right? I don't like both of those scenarios. I really don't, in terms of their development. But as we see the counselor, the problem with the counselors, some people don't want to be, they just want to be they don't want to be counseled. They just want to hang out. Right? You ever go to bump into someone and you start talking to them and they start trying to fix you, or they start trying to analyze you? It's just, when we do this with our kids all the time, next thing you know, they're checking out.
Mm-hmm.
They're checking out. And rightfully so. It's not fun for them. It's not fun. So they're kind of done.
What's the signal? How old are they when you kind of realize oh, I need to keep my opinions to myself and I need to just hang out with you?
That's interesting. This is kind of weird. Of course, I break life up into the early ages before puberty. Lots happening there in terms of parent. That's all on. We're full court press parents, because those before 12, your child's developing all those synapses and creating what life normal looks like.
Yeah.
So we really need to make a conscious effort to really be there for the kids. That means even taking a lesser job. I was speaking to a good friend of mine who has an empty nester. And I asked him yesterday, I said, if you had to do it all over again, what would you do differently? He said, I would have been there a lot more. kind of sweet. But anyway,
Yeah.
that ship has sailed. But so the early years, then we have the adolescence years, and then we have the adult years. That's kind of how I break it up. So
Yeah.
before 12, before 20, if you will, and then after 20. So
Yeah.
those kind of chunking it, and then those kind of areas, and the commander coach. And then if you do have things that you want to share with them, so sometimes it's appropriate, I guess. I actually ask for permission now. I never asked his permission when they were young.
Yeah.
But now I'll ask but I actually fired myself. I came to my kids because I have a really big mouth, and I'm a mouthaholic, so I like to talk. I like to talk a lot. But I told my kids, something, guys, I just want to let you know I fired myself. I'm not giving you any more advice or recommendations. If you already know what I think, but if you're really curious, you can always ask me. I'm not short on opinions.
That was like shock and awe, man. They're like, really? Like, for real? Are you really not going to do that? And that's just for the college and post-college. You still get to talk to Lucy whenever you want. She's in high school.
and along those lines, it does need to be said that I've had this conversation earlier. As I remember with Ethan growing up, I remember like when he was first, senior in high school, I said to him, Ethan, I want to let you know that your dad I love you. And I got to let you know that I'm trying to adopt this new form of parenting where I give you more space and let go. And that's really hard for me as a dad because I've been stuck in the commander coach mode. And now I need to shift. I need to shift to give you more space for you to flap your little wings and fly. So give me grace along those lines. That's what I told him when he was a senior in high school. But now that he's graduated from college, I told him I'm fired.
Right. You fired yourself.
Fired. And here's the reason why. There's an important reason why. Because what is the word? What's the word? You know what I'm thinking here. Unsolicited advice is seen as criticism.
That's right. That's Jim Burns.
Right? And why would I do that? Like, why didn't I set him up? He's going to do his own thing anyway. If he's dating a girl or if he's making dumb decisions, he's still going to make those decisions. It's not like he's going to say, oh my goodness, Dad, thanks for telling me. I didn't know. Right? That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
That's just not going to happen. So all that advice that I share, the only thing that it puts in my 20-plus-year-old is a wedge. And I don't want that wedge to be there. I would like the wedge doesn't need to be there. If he wants my advice, he can come and get it.
Yeah. You had Bill Farrell on the show and he talked about not saying it unless you see like really harm, like, wow, my son is really going to harm himself, like huge collateral damage kind of harm. And then you'd speak up. But then otherwise you're like, you're going to live your own life. And that's not the decision I would have made, but that's okay. And kind of get to that place of being okay with it. Okay.
No, I got a very specific thing I need to share.
Yeah, please.
So, I've trained my kids how to be drivers in every condition.
Yes, you have.
Country roads, every, and they always drive. It's like a big deal for me that they would be a competent driver. So, unless I'm running late to somewhere, but I was with my daughter, and now I'm learning since I fired myself, right? Unless we're if we're not running late, I'm not going to say anything. She's going to miss the exit. She's going to miss the exit. We're going to enjoy each other. Just the buttons. But just go. And it makes the ride much more pleasant. And surprise, most of the time, like 95, 97% of the time, she figures it out. But for me, it's very good. It's very good because I'm always that backseat driver. And they don't need a backseat driver.
Yeah. And if you're listening and if you're little kids, this is really important because it's setting you up for the trajectory of where you want to go. Because I know for moms, it is really hard to shift out of the coach and I tell you what to do and I tell you bring this and don't forget this and do your homework and did you bring a sweater and do you have enough protein in your diet? Like, and then to go from that to, I need to back off. Like that's really hard for moms. So dads, I know you're the ones listening, but just know for your wives, this is a difficult thing. One thing I noticed when you were talking, which I thought was really funny, I hadn't seen it before. You fired yourself. In other words, I will not keep giving you my opinion about things. I'm going to fire myself. And you did that before they could fire you. So I think that's good because at some point, Ethan, as a post-college grad working full-time, is going to be like, I'm out. Like, I'm going to fire you, Dad. Like, I'm going to stop listening to you, or I'm just going to tune you out, or, I see you're available, but I'm going to go the other way because I kind of don't want to hear it. So you could have been fired, but instead you fired yourself. So you
Hmm.
beat him to it. I think that's really good.
Yeah, thanks for saying that. That actually, come to think of it, that's really smart. I wish I would have thought of that.
That's very smart what you have done. What are some of those signs that it's like, oh man, I need to adapt? Like I'm stuck here and I'm the one actually who has to adapt.
Every single time when I've seen that adult who's a professional, who's
Mhm.
still a child emotionally,
Mhm.
right? We know those people.
Yeah, like so some 20-year-old is kind of what you're talking about
Or a
now.
25-year-old or a
Yeah.
30-year-old, right? But they still have they think very petty like a child.
Mhm.
Every single time there's anger. Every single time without a doubt, because they haven't developed the skills. Skills produce security. They do. So if you have competence, you're more secure in a sense. So what I'm getting at here is that if you see anger or resentment flaring up its head, maybe that's a little bit of a sign that you need to shift. You need to shift from commander to coach or to counselor to consultant. And by the way, I'm not talking about with a 12-year-old, right? Anything under 12, we're not talking about that.
Mhm.
Even though there is a dynamic, there is stuff that we had to let go. I remember with Noelle, I don't know what year she was, but she wanted to go to this conference that I didn't want her to go to. But there is this letting go that's a part of parenting. I do agree with that. But anytime you see this anger flare up, the question is why? Why is this? Because anger is always a secondary emotion. First comes sad, then comes mad. How are they disappointed? So I would just be curious to kind of go there. So that would be a telltale sign that something needs to shift.
You talk a lot about skills, how kids need to have skills. Give us an example. Are these emotional skills? Are these financial skills? Are they reading skills? What skills can we begin with? What should we be paying attention to?
Yeah. So I would like you to talk about the emotional skills in just a second. But for me as a dad, it was really important for my kids to have skills. For example, they needed to learn how to drive a car. They needed to be able to swim. They
Yeah.
needed to be able to ride a bike. They needed to be on rollerblades. They needed to be able to have some martial arts. These are all skills. Those are very important for me, these physical skills. I wish I would have added dance to the list because I think we all need to celebrate a lot more.
Mhm.
I just think these are good skills for people to have. Skills would be along the lines of their competence in school. So their ability to do calculus and all that stuff is beyond me, but that still is an important component. But on top of that, and most importantly, are those emotional skills. And if you can blast through, what are those emotional skills that you wrote about with Gary Chapman?
Yeah, so these are from Screen Kids. They all start with the letter A. So they're affection, to be able to give and receive love, appreciation, that you have grateful kids. That solves a lot of problems if they're not entitled, but they're actually grateful. Like, thank you for these little beans you put in front of me, instead of like, why don't you cook something tastier? I wanted pizza, right? So appreciation, anger management. Yes, anger is going to be part of life, but they know how to manage it correctly. Apology, they can repair relationships, and attention, that they have the emotional patience to pay attention when they need to. So these are skills very much lacking, but these are skills more important than the A+ you get in school.
And when we adapt, we help our kids develop these skills. And when we don't adapt, we end up creating children that don't have skills and have the burden of resentment. Yeah, I see this happen. And it doesn't matter how old the parent is, by the way. I saw this happen with one of my clients where, this 60-year-old is treating his daughter, who's 35,
Yeah.
like she's 9. And I'm in the car just listening to their conversation. I didn't say a thing; it's none of my business. But it's just very, very interesting to see how we need to be flexible. And if there isn't this flexibility, I guarantee you, it will create resentment. It will create resentment, no question about it. And the worst thing about it, though, too, is I call it play the movie. What I mean by that is you look at life through a long, 5, 10, 15 years down the road. When you play the movie, I would think all of us want to hang out with our kids and be friends with them, like to actually enjoy them as people, right?
Yeah.
That starts with us shifting from commander to coach to counselor to consultant. And if there isn't this shift that's going on, if I were a betting man, and I'm not, But I would bet you're not going to be friends with your kids when you're a senior.
It is interesting because many times in parenting, you're in survival mode instead of thinking really through proactively, like, okay, I want to like you when you
Yes.
are 20, 30, 40. So what needs to happen right now? And because if you don't like your kid, you don't like being with your kid and I'm not saying like you have to like it every single moment of every single day. That's what I'm
Sure.
talking about. But
Sure.
generally speaking, if they're 5, 10, 15, and you're like, I really don't like being with you, you're difficult. That's because there's something they have not learned to get along with people, right? That's making them difficult. And that might be that when you were supposed to be the commander in the early years saying, hey, that's not how we treat people. You go apologize to that person and you make it right. If you're not the commander, but you're like, oh, Johnny didn't feel like it, so we didn't make him do it, right? So that's when you're playing the wrong role at the wrong time, and your kids can miss out on a lot.
We all have our preferences of what we like, but the issue isn't my needs. The issue is their needs. So now, like, I'm catching myself, like, as you know, when we talk and we're bantering, like, I'll have like these things that fire off of my head, like this story from when I was a kid, this story, this experience. And I'll just say to myself, do I really need to be the conversational narcissist and share my thing? Do I really need to do that? Does this really enhance the conversation? So just to have this awareness of this, I think, on a long term, and again, play the movie for going back to that child who is 9 or 10, and they haven't developed those 5 A+ skills that you referred to earlier. Parent, play the movie. What are they going to be like when they're 15, 20, 25, 30? You really need to, what we affectionately call slap chop it. Vince
slap chop. That's very funny.
And I'm not referring to physical. Well, that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, it was a kitchen tool that chopped up vegetables. It was called slap chop, and it like chops everything magically. So
it needs to be dealt with.
When we want to say we want to fix something, we're like, let's slap chop that thing.
It needs to be dealt with at the 9-year-old, because I don't like how the movie ends.
Yeah.
If it's not dealt with, it becomes toxic.
And there's hope, right? So it's like, if you're listening and you're like, oh my goodness, I've got this 15-year-old and I didn't do these things. What advice would you give to that person that's feeling like, oh, I didn't quite do it like this. What could I do now?
Humble pie is the pastry that's never tasty. But my experience is the more you eat of it, the easier life becomes.
It's good.
So you just got to humble yourself in front of your kids and do the same conversation I had with Ethan years ago. I was a good dad, or maybe I wasn't a good dad, but I did the early years well. Now you're shifting into a man. I had to have that conversation with him in 2 unique ways. I already told you, but one would be help me as I transition. Like, I'm trying to do this. And the second thing that I think is appropriate is don't confuse your desire for independence with disrespect.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I will say this, you got to give him the freedom, right? The freedom needs to be there for that little one to do his thing.
Freedom, like you would talk about this a lot, like you are free to disagree with me, but you are not free to dishonor me or dishonor your mother, etc. Like, you have to show honor to us as parents, but you can totally disagree with us and think we're out to lunch, and that's totally fine.
Yeah. I don't. They really well said. Agreement is not the goal here. They could totally disagree. That's I actually think is really healthy. Actually, yeah, and for us not to pounce on them, right?
Yeah,
because they disagree.
Yeah,
I mean, they'll figure it out.
What do you think parents are struggling with when it comes to changing their parenting styles?
There's an appropriateness that is. There's seasons that happen in life that are unique and they're precious. But I guess I think it was Mark Twain said that, the only one that likes change is a wet baby.
Right.
Like, it's very difficult for us to change, and you think you just got it and the ball's moving now. Everything's like, it's changing. Yeah. And there needs to be this appropriateness and this adapting. It really needs to be a part of the conversation, because it's not just one way and then we got it. Like, I had the commander and the coach and the counselor. I had that really well down. The consultant of just backing off. You call me when you're ready, the kind of deal. Like, I really needed. I struggled with that.
Yeah,
I did.
Totally. Yeah, we're taking a dance class. We have been taking the salsa class with the girls, which was very fun. And one thing that we learned was not to sit back on your heels, but to be more like kind of on the balls, your feet kind of ready to do the next move. And he likened it to sports, that if you're standing there in the outfield, you're not just standing on your heels, just kind of, what's going on, but you're like on you're more on the balls of your feet, leaning forward, kind of ready to where's this ball going to go. And that's like this stance, what you're saying in parenting. It's not just like, okay, we're just kind of checked out. We're kind of here doing what we've always done. But hey, change is coming. Let's get on the balls of our feet. What's going on? Our kids going, into middle school. Now our kids in high school. Now our kids graduating out. What do I need to learn about this new stage? I think that posture is really healthy and good. And then it's proactive. You don't feel like you're this victim that, it all changed and they just forgot me and they don't care about me anymore.
Yes. Yeah. It's a really dynamic, this thing called parenting is so dynamic. And once we think we got to figure it out, there's this part where you're proactive. You want to raise an adult. You're right. We want to raise adults. We want to launch adults. So with that being in mind, keep in mind, part of that battle is that those emotional A+ skills that you talked about, those emotional skills, which is so critical. And they're not going to develop them. They're not going to develop them if we're doing all the heavy lifting for them.
Yeah, if they don't have to apologize and pay attention and do those things because we do it for them.
Especially for that, especially in that, this is one of my pet peeves, especially in those early years, 0 to 12, where I'll ask the child a question and the mother will answer for me and then say, she's shy.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. You say so.
Yeah.
Sorry if I just offended you. But seriously, play that movie.
But instead, be like, try, like encourage your child that is more shy, like try to do the thing. Yes. Now, you can grow in that.
We didn't allow that in our home because we have 4 rules, right? Others best and smile. And that wasn't doing unto others. That wasn't kind. So we have to put others ahead of ourselves. So
that common courtesy.
That was,
Yeah. Well, we have some listener questions, and this question comes from Johnny in San Diego, and he asks, how honest should we be with our kids about our personal shortcomings, mistakes, and regrets? As our kids look up to us, it's rough to show weakness. What do you think about that?
I'm going to say, and I'd like you to chime in here too, Arlene, I'm going to say is age appropriate, right? I wouldn't give a 5-year-old a 50-pound weight to carry.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's appropriate, for example, to share with them, the financial struggles that we have.
Right.
I don't think that creates insecurity into them, and they don't understand it. They don't know how to process this stuff.
Yeah.
Right. I remember I would look at the newspaper as a kid. I got the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times every day. And I remember the headlines, IBM lays off 20,000 people. GM lays off. And I couldn't filter. I thought the whole world was going to Hades. I really did.
Right. This is you as a kid looking at your dad's newspaper thinking this. Yeah.
Kids don't have appropriate filters.
Yeah.
So the first thing I'm going to say is you share stuff with them. Make sure that it's age appropriate.
Right.
But I do think it's appropriate for us to be vulnerable with them. I do. I think that's kind of sweet and endearing.
Yeah.
When we wrestle with God, when we wrestle with life, when we realize that, sometimes daddy gets, I remember the first time my mom corrected me in front of the kids, and Noelle just started laughing. She goes,
oh, that's funny.
She just started laughing.
That's hilarious.
Right? I don't know if you remember that.
I don't remember the exact time, but that sounds funny.
But the kids enjoy that aspect of knowing, okay, dad's human too.
Yeah, my parents are getting in trouble. That's a good one.
Yeah,
yes.
We call it vitamin N. No. Sometimes life says no to our parents, but just make sure it's age appropriate. Make sure it's a burden that they shouldn't carry, like the finances.
Yeah.
I understand there's limitations and they should be aware of that, but they shouldn't fret. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, I think it's good for the kids to understand, I'm not perfect. I've made mistakes too. And they can be similar to what they're facing. So for instance, if Lucy was little in elementary school and felt like, I didn't make a friend today, then I could say, when I was in elementary school, I was really shy and I didn't talk to anybody and it took me a long time to have friends. These are things, or maybe I regret that I didn't reach out to, now I'm older and I could see I should have talked more and I was really quiet or whatever. So I think alongside of where they're at, to say things is really good. And the idea of like, I'm not perfect is great. And I think that conversation of I've never done this before at this stage, you're 10 and I've never had a 10-year-old if they're your oldest, and being very honest about that. I think that's all really good. It's fine to show that kind of weakness. Same thing with apology, that if you apologize to your child, that is not a sign of weakness. It's an example to them that when you make a mistake, you repair the relationship. It's a good thing.
I think we need to get along those lines. You got to get really good at apologizing.
Mm-hmm.
You really do. Otherwise, you got to keep on making new friends.
Yeah.
You really
got to
do.
repair your relationship.
You got to, especially with the kids. I mean, right?
Yes. Yeah. And you're trying to learn and get better, so you have to do it less, but you're going to do it. Okay. Johnny also asks, when is our influence too much? So for instance, in choosing a college, who to date, what major should you take? What job should you take? When are we doing too much?
Johnny, that is a great question. As we go through these different things of commander, coach, counselor, consultant, it's interesting. We want to educate our kids. For example, if they're pursuing a college and whatever, and we know that education is not going to produce an income for them, I think they should be educated. I also think they should also be aware of the consequences of their decisions. Mm-hmm. Like once we're done with college, like it's not my job. Like you're launched. My job is to launch an adult, right?
Yeah.
So I'll give you the skills that you needed. The same way we learned, on the bicycle, on the skis, in the car, is the same way I will launch you into adulthood. But you need to be aware that the college you're pursuing for like a theater director, there are not too many needs for theater directors. So you're going to need to supplement that career. But if they're still passionate about it, that's their prerogative. But now they need to live with I think you just did a podcast, truth and logic. They need to deal with the consequences of that.
Yeah.
Which is really, 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 really hard for us parents to do, is let them experience the consequences of their actions. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's hard. That's hard. So I would just kind of share it, when they're making decisions. The problem is when to keep it shut, when to keep the mouth shut. So for a situation like a college, especially if I'm paying for it, that's another story. With Ethan, I'm not paying for anything. Mm-hmm. Right? But if I'm paying for something, I have say so.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
If I'm paying for the dinner, I got say so.
I can kind of help choose the restaurant. Yeah. Right? Unless it's your birthday, maybe. Yeah.
Right? So I think that needs to be said. So the dating thing, we gave our kids boundaries, like basically no dating before high school, until college. But when they get to college, like I don't have a say so anyway, like they're going to date who they're going to date.
And I want to put a caveat on that. We did, like, you could go on a group date if you wanted to go to an event, you could do that. But that we said we didn't think it was wise to do that real individual, dating, like seriously.
Mushy stuff.
Mushy stuff. Wait till college. And actually, none of our kids in high school, and, Lucy's still got one more year, but they didn't really find that person that they really wanted to date. So we kind of got a free pass on that one, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So this is really good to create the rules ahead of time.
Yeah.
That is easy. So even for the expectation, when Ethan came back from after college, we made it very clear when you go into college, here's the dollar amount that you have. The expectation should create disappointments, right?
Right. So they think, I thought you guys were going to pay for college. And then you're like, no, we're going to pay X amount of dollars towards college that
Exactly. So I would say to preempt this stuff is, so we created a dollar amount. In addition to that, I also created, when you come back from college, there's going to be rent payments. Mm-hmm. Just to create this idea, like you're kind of like, my job is done. I'm fired. I still love you.
Yeah.
Still love you. Absolutely. My job is to raise an adult, not to raise a child. And for you to still be living at home. Now, granted, Ethan still lives at home. He's in his 20s. And I love the fact that he lives at home. Mm-hmm. It's great. It's fun. We actually never get to see him. But do you hear what I'm saying? I'm trying to illustrate the point that he is pursuing life. He's living life large.
Yeah.
He's not living here at a default because he didn't apply himself. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there is a difference.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I addressed this with Johnny's question. Go back to that latter part of the question.
Yeah, like what is too much influence? So we've talked about college, we've talked about dating. So basically, as they're making their own choices, when are maybe you turning manipulative versus, sharing your opinion? So
yeah. When we do go manipulation, I just don't like how the movie ends. Mm-hmm. When you fast forward that 5 or 10 years out, I don't like the angst that's going to create for that little one. So let's assume they want to do the theater thing. I'm not really crazy about the theater thing. If you do theater, God bless you. I think it's a fun career. It sounds like fun. Don't know how much money you make, but it sounds like a lot of fun. So let's assume they want to do that and they want to go for it wholeheartedly. God bless you. That's awesome. Let's go. Let's do this thing. I'll support you as much as I can, right? But there's going to be where you got to deal with the consequences of that degree.
As we wrap up, is there anything else you want to say about these stages of parenting that you either want to reiterate, that you really want them to remember, or something new that you weren't able to share?
Just keep in mind, mom and dad, that this parenting thing needs to change. It needs to be dynamic. It needs to be fluid. You need to be on your toes. You need to read those books ahead of time. You need to talk to those parents that have experienced what you're about to experience. So right now we're like interviewing parents that we see that are empty nesters.
Empty nesters, totally.
And people who are retiring. We want to know how they did it well. So just put that on your radar, always to stay a step ahead and to realize that you got to do this thing in a dynamic way that changes, that meets their needs. Because if you don't, you're going to create kids that have lack of skills, and you're also going to engineer a lot of unnecessary resentments. Yeah.
That's true. Well, this has been super fun talking about this very helpful topic. And if people want to learn more from you, I want to remind all of our listeners that James has been a coach for many years, has coached hundreds
300
of people.
Over 300 people.
And he is available and able to coach you up as a dad if you are wanting that he can help you as a dad. So check that out at happyhomeuniversity.com/coaching. And he would be happy to get back to you about that.
Sounds like a plan. God bless you guys.